The war had been raging for months, but on this remote corner of the galaxy, silence reigned. Captain Elias Hargrove stepped out of the docking bay, his boots clanging against the cold metal floor. His mission was simple: deliver supplies to the Shirathi, a reclusive alien race that preferred to keep humans arm's length. But the moment he entered their station, he felt the tension in the air like a storm ready to break. Soldiers patrolled every corridor, their strange armor gleaming under pale lights. Their eyes followed him, unreadable. He had been warned the Shirathi were proud and quick to take offense. One wrong word could end in violence. Elias wasn't worried, he had dealt with worse. But as he turned a corner, he froze. Standing there was a young Shirathi woman, her skin of flawless deep blue with faint bioluminescent freckles glowing softly. Long, elegant head tentacles framed her face, flowing down like strands of living silk. Her wide silver eyes met his, curious yet guarded. For a moment, neither spoke. He had seen many alien species, but she was unlike any he had met, striking, graceful, and somehow dangerous. She tilted her head slightly, studying him like she could read his thoughts. He realized she was wearing ceremonial armor, but not the kind soldiers wore. This one was crafted for something more important, something that demanded respect. Elias broke the silence. "Your tentacles look great today," he said, his voice steady but calm. It was a harmless compliment, but in an alien culture, harmless words could be a gamble. He expected a polite nod at best or a cold dismissal. Instead, her eyes widened. In shock, she stepped closer, her movements fluid, almost predatory. "Do you know what that means?" she asked softly, her voice carrying an accent that wrapped around each word like silk. He hesitated. "A compliment?" Her lips curved into something between a smirk and a warning. "Among my people, you have just challenged me." Before he could ask how, two armored Shirathi guards appeared behind her, hands on their weapons. One of them spoke in a low, harsh tone, eyes locked on Elias. "Human, you speak as if you know our bonds. Be careful, words have power here." The woman raised a hand, stopping them. "Leave him," she ordered. Her voice had the weight of authority, and the guards obeyed instantly, disappearing into the shadows. Elias realized she wasn't just any Shirathi, she was someone important. She leaned closer, her silver eyes never leaving his. "You don't understand the game you've stepped into. By speaking to me this way, you've put yourself in the middle of something you can't walk away from." Elias wanted to laugh it off, but her tone wasn't playful, it was serious, almost dangerous. "Then maybe you can explain it," he said, his voice calm but his mind racing. Her gaze softened just a fraction. "I could," she replied. "But first, you must survive what comes next." The floor trembled under their feet. A deep, resonating hum filled the air as warning lights began flashing along the walls. Elias instinctively reached for the pistol at his hip, but she grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Not here," she said urgently. "If you want to live, follow me." They ran through the twisting corridors, the hum growing louder. The station shook again, this time harder, as if something massive had just latched onto it from the outside. Elias glanced at her, but she didn't look back. She moved like someone who knew every passage by heart, her tentacles flowing behind her like ribbons in a storm. They burst into a narrow chamber, the doors sealing shut behind them. The noise outside was now a constant roar, mixed with distant shouts and the metallic thud of weapons fire. Elias took a breath, trying to steady himself. "I assume this isn't a regular supply drop anymore." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "You humans have a talent for understatements." Then she stepped closer, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Listen carefully, Captain. That compliment you gave me, it's not just words here. You've claimed something without knowing it, and others will want to challenge you for it." "Claimed what?" "Me," she said simply. Elias blinked, unsure if she was joking. Her expression told him she wasn't. Outside, the sound of battle drew closer. Somewhere deep in the station, a massive explosion rattled the floor. The woman's hand brushed the hilt of a curved blade at her side. "You've stepped into a war you didn't see coming, human. And now you're bound to me until it's over." Before he could respond, the lights went out, plunging them into darkness. Only the faint glow of her skin and the cold steel of her eyes remained visible. "Stay close," she whispered. "The one's coming now. Won't care who you are." Asterisk. The darkness pressed in, broken only by the faint glow of her skin. Elias could hear the hum of machinery through the walls and the muffled echo of footsteps. Approaching. The sound wasn't hurried, it was deliberate, like predators closing in. The alien woman moved silently, leading him through the black corridor with confident steps. Her tentacles flowed behind her like streams of light. She didn't speak, but Elias could feel her grip tighten around his wrist. Whoever was coming wasn't here to talk. They reached a locked door. She tapped a small device on her wrist, and a circular hatch hissed open. Inside was a cramped maintenance tunnel barely wide enough for the two of them. "In," she whispered. Elias climbed in first, crawling forward on hands and knees. The air inside was warmer, filled with the faint scent of metal and ozone. She followed, sealing the hatch behind them. Almost immediately, he heard the heavy steps stop right outside. A metallic clank echoed through the corridor they'd just left, followed by a scraping sound, something dragging along the floor. He froze, listening. The scraping grew louder, then stopped. Whoever it was, they were searching. She leaned close, her voice a low breath in his ear. "Keep moving, quietly." They crawled through the narrow passage until it opened into a larger chamber filled with cables, conduits, and flickering lights. A huge window overlooked the vast emptiness of space, but Elias's eyes were drawn to the massive shape looming outside, a warship, its hull bristling with weapons, slowly rotating toward the station. "That's not one of yours, is it?" he asked. She shook her head. "Mercenaries, hired to take me or kill me." "Why?" "Because of who I am," she replied. Her eyes locked on his. "And now, because of you." Elias studied her for a moment. "You still haven't told me your name." "Vera," she said. The name rolled off her tongue like a whisper of wind. "High daughter of the Sharathi sovereign line." Elias blinked. "So, you're a princess." Her expression was unreadable. "To some, that makes me a prize. To others, a threat." He looked out at the warship again. "And my little compliment just put me in the middle of it." "Yes," she said simply. "You claimed me before witnesses. By our laws, that means you're now bonded. My enemies won't see you as an outsider anymore. They'll see you as part of me, which means they'll kill you just as quickly." Before Elias could reply, a deep rumble shook the station. Emergency lights flashed red, and the chamber's door slammed shut with a heavy thud. A voice came over the intercom, speaking in a guttural alien language. Vera's face tightened. "What did they say?" Elias asked. "They've boarded. We have minutes before they reach this sector." She crossed the room to a locked weapons cabinet and pressed her palm to the scanner. The door opened to reveal a selection of sleek alien rifles and blades. She handed Elias one of the rifles. "Ever used Sharathi tech?" "Not unless it comes with an instruction manual," he said, hefting the weapon. "Point. Shoot. Don't miss," she replied dryly. The chamber's far wall shuddered as something heavy pounded against it. Elias could hear faint hissing, like gas leaking through. Vera crouched low, her tentacles curling slightly in anticipation. "Stay behind me until I say otherwise." The wall exploded inward, spraying shards of metal across the floor. 3 figures stepped through the smoke tunnel, armored in black exosuits with glowing red visors. They carried curved rifles unlike any Elias had seen, and they moved with perfect coordination. Vera was already in motion. She darted forward, her curved blade flashing as it cut through the first attacker's weapon. Elias raised his rifle and fired at the second. The energy. Bolt hit center mass, sending the figure crashing into a wall. The third aimed at him, but Vera's tentacle lashed out like a whip, wrapping around the weapon and yanking it away. Within seconds, the fight was over. Two mercenaries lay unconscious, the third groaning on the floor. Vera grabbed him by the throat and pulled him close. "Who sent you?" she demanded. The mercenary's voice crackled through his helmet. "You know who. The council wants you dead." Vera's grip tightened, but she let him drop. "We need to move. There will be more." They slipped out of the chamber, weaving through the station's inner corridors. Elias could hear distant firefights and the hiss of sealed doors breaking open. Whatever security the Shirathi had, it wasn't holding Dot as they moved, he noticed. Something strange wherever Vera went. Soldiers didn't just obey. They watched her with a mix of fear and respect. She wasn't just a princess, she was someone with power. Finally, they reached a docking bay. A sleek silver ship sat ready, its engines already humming. Vera motioned toward it. "We leave now, or we die here," Elias hesitated. "And where exactly are we going?" She met his eyes. "To finish what your words started." Before he could question her, the sound of pounding boots echoed from the far end of the bay. More mercenaries poured in, their weapons raised. Vera grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the ship. As the hatch sealed behind them and the engines roared to life, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just been tied to hers in a way he didn't fully understand, and judging by the fire in her eyes, whatever came next wasn't going to be simple. Asterisk, the ship tore away from the docking bay with a sudden surge, pressing Elias back into his seat. Through the viewing screen, the Shirathi station shrank into the distance, framed against the massive warship that had been closing in. Streams of light flashed past as enemy fighters broke formation to pursue them. Vera sat at the controls, her hands moving over alien glyphs with fluid precision. The ship banked sharply, dodging a spray of energy fire that lit up the dark void. Like streaks of lightning, Elias gripped the edge of his seat, every muscle tense. "You fly like someone who's done this too often," he said. Her lips twitched. "I've been hunted my whole life. This is nothing new." He glanced at the display. Several red blips were converging on their position. "They're gaining." "They won't," she said, flipping a switch. The ship's engines roared louder, and the stars outside stretched into long white lines as they jumped into faster-than-light travel. The enemy ships vanished from the scanner. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Okay, safe for now. Vera didn't look away from the controls. Safe is a human word. It means nothing out here. He studied her profile, the faint glow of her skin reflecting off the ship's panels. "You're not going to tell me what this is really about, are you?" Her silver eyes flicked toward him, and for a moment he thought she might ignore the question. Then she said, "There's a faction within the Shirathi Council that wants to end our isolation. They see humans as a threat and an opportunity. I stand in their way, and my little compliment just made me part of that fight." "Yes," she replied simply. "You bound yourself to me in front of witnesses. Now they'll use you to get to me, or destroy you to break my position." Elias leaned back, letting that sink in. "And if I unbound myself?" Her gaze sharpened. "You can't, not without blood. It's our law." The cockpit fell silent, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. Elias rubbed his jaw, considering his options. "So where are we going now?" "To a place where the council won't dare follow," she said. "That's comforting." He muttered. Hours passed in the strange half-light of hyperspace. Elias dozed in his seat until the ship's alert system chimed softly. Vera had already straightened, her hands steady on the controls. When the stars snapped back into view, Elias's eyes widened. Before them hung a massive, jagged world, its surface broken by deep chasms glowing faintly from within. Orbiting the planet were the skeletal remains of ancient warships, drifting like ghosts. "What is this place?" he asked. "Grave World," she said, "the final resting place of the First War's dead." The sight was haunting. The debris field stretched as far as he could see, rusting hulls, shattered weapons, and frozen bodies still trapped in broken ships. It was as if the battle had ended only yesterday. Vyra guided the ship carefully through the wreckage, avoiding twisted beams and drifting mines that had long since gone inactive, but still floated like silent warnings. Elias kept his voice low, as if afraid to disturb the place. "And we're here because," she hesitated, "because I need something my enemies would kill for. Something that will prove I am not just a target." "And let me guess," Elias said, "this thing is buried somewhere in that graveyard?" Her lips curved slightly. "You catch on fast." They descended toward the planet's surface, skimming over jagged cliffs and valleys lit by molten rivers. Finally, she set the ship down inside a vast cavern, its ceiling glittering with crystal formations that cast pale blue light across the walls. As they stepped out, Elias felt the heat and the faint tremor of the ground beneath his boots. Vera moved ahead with purpose, her blade at her side. They walked deeper into the cavern until they reached a massive door carved into the rock. Strange alien runes glowed faintly on its surface. "This is it," she said. Elias eyed the door. "Let me guess, it doesn't open to just anyone." She placed both hands on the runes, and the door shuddered before slowly splitting apart. Inside was a chamber lined with black stone and faintly glowing symbols. At the center stood a pedestal holding a long, ornate staff. Its headpiece was shaped like a crescent moon, and the metal shimmered as if alive. Vera stepped toward it reverently. "The Staff of Chiron," she whispered. "An heirloom of my bloodline, lost for centuries." Elias frowned. "Looks important." "It is," she said. "With this, I can challenge the Council's rule." Before she could take it, the air filled with a low hum. Shadows moved at the edges of the chamber. Figures emerged from the darkness. Mercenaries. At least a dozen, their red visors glowing. Vera's eyes narrowed. "They followed us." Elias raised his weapon. "Guess we're not leaving without a fight." The leader of the mercenaries stepped forward, his voice cold through the helmet. "Leave the staff and you might live." Vera gripped her blade. "I think you know my answer." The room exploded into motion. The first shot lit up the chamber in a flash of blue. Elias dropped behind the nearest stone column, the bolt narrowly missing his head. Vera didn't hide. She darted forward, her tentacles whipping through the air like striking serpents. The blade in her hand caught the dim light as she closed the gap with the nearest mercenary. Elias returned fire, the alien rifle kicking less than he expected, but burning hot in his hands. One mercenary fell, armor sparking as the bolt slammed into his chest. The others spread out, moving with cold precision to encircle them. Vera moved like water. She slipped past one attacker, slicing through the conduit on his rifle before driving her knee into his chest. He collapsed, gasping for breath. Her tentacles lashed outward, catching another by the throat and hurling him into a wall with bone-shattering force. Elias kept low, switching targets with every shot. The alien rifle whined with each discharge, its barrel glowing faintly. He clipped one mercenary in the shoulder, spinning him around just as Vera's blade found the opening in his armor. But there were too many. For every one they dropped, another filled the gap. The chamber echoed with the sound of weapons fire and the metallic clang of blades against armor. Vera spun to Elias's side, breathing hard but still sharp-eyed. "We can't hold this position. They'll box us in. Suggestions?" he asked, firing blindly around the column. She glanced at the staff on the pedestal. "We take it and leave, now." Without hesitation, Elias broke cover, sprinting toward the center of the chamber. Blaster bolts scorched the floor around his feet. He skidded to a stop at the pedestal, grabbing the staff with both hands. The metal was warm, too warm as if it had a pulse. The moment he lifted it, the runes on the walls flared to life, bathing the chamber in bright blue light. The sudden glow stunned the mercenaries. Vera seized the opening, cutting down the nearest pair before they could recover. Elias felt a surge run through his arms, the staff humming like it recognized him. "Move!" Vera shouted. They fell back toward the open door, Elias swinging the staff like a quarterstaff. The first mercenary to get close was knocked off his feet, the impact sending a shockwave through the air. Vera's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, then she smiled sharply. "You're bonded to it now," she said. "I didn't exactly have time to read the manual." He muttered. The two of them fought their way out of the chamber, the mercenaries stumbling under the weight of the staff's energy. The door sealed behind them with a deep, echoing thud, cutting off the sound of pursuit. They didn't slow down. The cavern trembled again, dust falling from the ceiling. Something deep in the planet groaned, as if the battle had woken something far older than either of them. "What's happening?" Elias asked. "The staff's power is tied to this world. Removing it destabilizes the core," Vera replied without looking back. "That sounds bad." "It is." By the time they reached the docking bay, the ground was shaking hard enough to make Elias stumble. The molten rivers outside the cavern were boiling violently, sending gouts of steam into the air. They boarded the ship in seconds, Vera sliding into the pilot's seat while Elias strapped himself in. The moment the engines roared to life, a chunk of the cavern ceiling crashed down where the ship had been sitting moments earlier. As they lifted off, the planet's surface split in massive cracks, glowing brighter and brighter until the whole world looked like it might tear itself apart. Behind them, the mercenary ship rose into the sky, weapons powering up. "They're not giving up," Elias said. "Then we make them," Vera replied, fingers dancing over the controls. The ship banked hard, swinging around to face their pursuers. Vera activated the forward weapons, the targeting reticle locking onto the mercenary vessel. "When I fire, hold on to something." Elias gripped the nearest support rail. The ship's cannons unleashed a blinding barrage, cutting through the mercenary ship's shields in seconds. A final shot punched through the hull, igniting the engines in a violent explosion that lit the sky. Debris rained down toward the planet's cracking surface. Vera didn't waste time watching. She pushed the ship into high orbit, escaping the gravitational pull, just as the grave world's core erupted in a massive blast. The shockwave spread outward, flinging debris in every direction. Elias stared at the viewscreen, watching the once mighty world dissolve into molten fragments. "Remind me never to let you talk me into sightseeing again." Vera's lips curved faintly. This was no sightseeing trip. This was survival. He glanced at the staff lying across his lap. "So, what now?" "We have the magic stick. Your enemies know I'm bonded to you." "What's the plan?" Her gaze met his, steady and unreadable. "Now we go to my people, and we make them choose stand with us, or face what's coming." The way she said it made Elias wonder if she meant the Council's enemies, or her. The journey back to Sharathi Prime was quiet, but the silence felt heavy. Elias kept glancing at the staff lying beside him. Every so often, it gave off a faint hum, almost like it was alive. He wasn't sure if it was reassuring or unsettling. Vera hadn't spoken much since they left Graveworld. She sat at the controls, her silver eyes fixed on the endless stretch of space ahead. Finally, he broke the silence. "So, what exactly happens when we get there?" Her voice was calm, but carried a weight he hadn't heard before. "I walk into the Grand Hall with the staff of Chiron. By our laws, possession of it grants me the right to challenge the Council's authority. And me? You stand with me." You've already bound yourself in front of witnesses. If you don't, they'll see it as betrayal." He sighed. "So basically, smile and look dangerous." Her lips curved slightly. "Something like that." Hours later, the blue-green sphere of Sharathi Prime filled the viewport. As they descended through its atmosphere, Elias caught sight of vast oceans, towering crystal spires, and sprawling cities that seemed to grow organically from the land. The capital was unlike anything he'd ever seen a massive cluster of. Silver towers surrounded by floating platforms and shimmering bridges. They landed on a wide terrace high above the city. Waiting for them were 24 armored guards, their weapons at the ready. At their head stood an older Sharathi male with dark, weathered skin and elaborate tentacle markings braided with gold. His gaze locked on Vera immediately. "High daughter," he said with a deep bow. "The council awaits." Vera didn't hesitate. "Lead the way." They walked through towering halls lined with ancient carvings. Elias could feel the eyes of every guard and attendant on him. Whispers followed them like a shadow. The human outsider with their high daughter bonded, carrying the sacred staff. The grand hall was vast, its domed ceiling glowing with a soft light that seemed to come from nowhere. At its center sat the Sharathi Council, 9 figures in ornate robes, their faces unreadable. The one in the middle, a tall female with silver and black skin, spoke first. "Vera, you return with the staff of Chiron. Explain yourself." Vera stepped forward, her voice clear and commanding. "The council has grown weak. You hide behind treaties while our enemies move against us. The staff grants me the right to challenge your leadership and declare a new course for our people." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The central figure's gaze shifted to Elias. "And the human? Why is he here?" Vera's silver eyes sharpened. "Because he is bonded to me. His words bound him by our customs, and by our law he stands. As my ally." The chamber erupted in louder whispers. One of the counselors, a male with sharp ridges along his jaw, sneered. "A human? This is a mockery. You bring an outsider into our sacred hall and expect us to respect your claim?" Elias felt every gaze turn toward him. He could practically hear their judgment. He opened his mouth, but Vera spoke first. "Without him, the staff would still be lost. Without him, I would be dead. Question my judgment, but you will not question his place here." The central figure leaned back, studying them both. "Then you accept the terms of challenge, High Daughter. If the council votes, you must face their chosen champion. Victory grants you the authority you seek. Defeat means death." "I accept," Vera said without hesitation. The council chamber fell silent. Then the central figure spoke again. "The challenge will take place at dawn. Until then, you will be kept under guard." Vera inclined her head slightly, as if she had expected this. They were escorted to a high tower overlooking the city. The room was lavish but clearly meant to keep them contained. No weapons, no open exits. As the guards left, Elias turned to her. "You could have warned me about the whole fight to the death thing." She sat by the window, looking out over the glowing city. "Would you have run?" He thought about it, then shook his head. "No, but I might have complained." "More." A faint smile touched her lips. "Good, then we'll prepare." Elias glanced at the staff leaning against the wall. "Who do you think they'll send against you?" Her expression grew serious. "The most dangerous warrior in the Sharathi Empire. Someone who knows me, my style, my weaknesses. Someone you can't beat." Her gaze met his. "Someone I must beat." Outside, the city lights shimmered like stars fallen to the ground. But Elias could feel the weight of what tomorrow would bring, a fight neither of them could afford to lose. Dawn on Sharathi Prime came with no sun. Only a gradual brightening of the sky as the planet's crystalline clouds reflected light from its distant star. From the tower balcony, Elias could see the grand arena below, a massive circular structure carved into the city's heart. Tens of thousands of Sharathi citizens were already gathering, their armor and jewelry glittering under the morning glow. Vera stood at the center of the room, her ceremonial armor now restored and polished. The silver filigree along its edges caught the light, and her tentacles were bound in intricate braids that signified both nobility and combat readiness. She looked calm, but Elias could feel the tension in the air. "You've done this before?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "No one has challenged the council in over a century. But I was trained for this since birth." Elias glanced at the staff leaning against the wall. "And me? You stand with me until the moment the fight begins," she said. "After that, you watch and be ready." The guards arrived to escort them. The walk to the arena was long and silent, the air thick with anticipation. The crowd roared as they entered, the sound rolling over them like a storm. The arena floor was made of smooth, pale stone, etched with patterns that shimmered faintly, as if the very ground recognized the duel's importance. Across from them stood the council's champion. Elias's breath caught. The warrior was massive, taller than any Shiravi he'd seen, with armor the color of obsidian and tentacles tipped with gold rings. His eyes burned with a cold, practiced focus. Vera's expression didn't change. She stepped forward, staff in hand, and gave the traditional bow. The champion returned it slowly, then drew a long, curved blade that gleamed like liquid light. The central counselor's voice rang out across the arena. "By ancient right, the High Daughter challenges the council. Victory will grant her authority. Defeat will claim her life. Let the duel begin." The champion moved first, his speed startling for his size. His blade came down in a wide arc, but Vera sidestepped gracefully, the staff whipping around to deflect the follow-up strike. Sparks flew as metal met metal. Elias stood at the edge, every muscle tense. The two warriors circled each other, each probing for an opening. The champion pressed hard, his strikes heavy and relentless. Vera countered with precision, using the staff's reach to keep him just far enough away. A sudden feint caught her off guard. The champion's blade sliced across her shoulder, drawing a gasp from the crowd. Vera staggered but didn't fall. She pivoted sharply, bringing the staff around in a low sweep that knocked the champion off balance. The duel became faster, more brutal. Every strike was met with another, every dodge answered by a counter. The sound of clashing weapons echoed through the arena. Elias could feel his pulse pounding in his ears. Then, in one swift motion, the champion hooked her staff with his blade and wrenched it from her hands. The weapon clattered across the stone floor, far from her reach. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elias's instincts screamed at him to move. He didn't think, he just ran. Diving across the floor, he snatched up the staff and hurled it toward her. The champion turned just in time to see Vera catch it mid-spin. In one fluid motion, she brought it around in a crushing arc that slammed into his chest. The impact sent a visible shockwave through his armor, throwing him backward onto the stone. The arena fell silent. The champion tried to rise, but the staff's energy surged, pinning him down. Vera stood over him, the tip of the weapon inches from his throat. "I yield," the champion said, his voice low but clear. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Central Counselor rose, her expression unreadable. "By right of combat, Vera of the Sovereign line claims authority. The council acknowledges her victory." Vera lowered the staff and turned toward Elias. For the first time since he'd met her, her smile was free of guarded edges. When they returned to the grand hall, the council members stood in solemn acknowledgement. One by one, they bowed. The central figure spoke again. "Your claim stands. And so does your bond." Her eyes shifted to Elias. "By our law, you are bound to her until death." Elias blinked. "Right, no pressure." As they left the hall, Vera walked beside him, her voice low so only he could hear. "You risked yourself in the arena. You could have stayed back." He shrugged. "That's not how humans work." Her silver eyes softened. Then maybe that's why we'll win what comes next. Outside, the city's people cheered her name. And for the first time since he'd stepped onto Shirathi soil, Elias felt that maybe, just maybe, this bond wasn't a trap. It was the start of something far bigger.